Before every trip, the great debate begins. Stool, chair, or rock? Tent or hammock? And in the cases of some of you gear junkies, which tent or which hammock? Will I need to stay dry? Will I need to stay warm? Gear choices are bound to differ on every trip. But on each trip, we should start with one question. Why? Focusing on the things that we need. This is a quickly learned lesson by most backpackers. Generally speaking, with more experience comes less stuff. Everything we need has to fit on our backs. When I choose gear, I'm trying to get better at asking myself, why do I need this? I base my gear choices largely on simplicity and obviously usefulness. In today's video, we're going to talk about gear that I bring on almost every trip, and more importantly, why I bring it. But before we get too far into it, I want to give credit to my good buddy, Mike Gose, because this video was his idea, and I think it's a great one. Hopefully you do too. Let's start with the items on the front of my pack. First of all, this is just a little microfiber cloth. It has many uses. Snot, sweat. It's nice to dip into water, wash your face off, clean up with. It's just a very multi-purpose and ultralight piece of gear that I love to have on a carabiner right up front on my shoulder strap. And on the flip side, I always carry some sort of a beverage shoulder strap accessory. Really handy to have up front for obvious reasons. When you're hiking and you're thirsty, you can access that without stopping. I cannot leave home without this particular but I cannot leave home without this particular piece of gear. Fanny pack, very important accessory for me, because when I take my pack off for a break, I can access the things that are in here. Before I tell you what's in there though, when I have to pee, I simply slide it to the side, step off trail, and do my business. So in this little bag, I carry things that I want to access on trail. Number one, if I'm hiking in the evening and it may get dark, I'll put my headlamp in here. Number two, obvious, snacks, energy drinks, that type of thing, liquid IVs. I also keep my trail accessories in here, smokables and such. And sometimes my microphone case and some mild electronics if needed, like my battery bank. But the fanny pack for me is a non-negotiable item of something that I will bring on every single trip, despite its controversial popularity. Sticking with the outside of the pack is something quite simple, and that's why I carry it. If you're doing some research, you probably know that a lot of people will bring a chair. Oftentimes it's the Helinox Zero or the Nemo Moon Star hippie chair. There's a couple of 1 pound ultralight chairs out there, and they are extremely comfortable. However, for me, I stop and take breaks just like this as often as possible because I like to just sit and stare into the woods and hear what's going on out there. And I like to do that in a fast way. Now, minimalists will bring like a sit pad, but I like to get up off the ground a little bit. And this is a 13-ounce stool made by a company called Hillsound, and it's called the BTR stool, and it stands for Better Than a Rock. And again, there's not a lot of weight savings with this thing, but I can get up off the ground and I can do it in 10 seconds or less, which to me is a huge advantage to the cumbersome nature of setting up some of the more comfortable and high back chairs. This is called a welcome mat. It's literally just a waterproof piece of material that I lay on the ground. Why I bring this? It keeps my gear from getting wet, keeps things a little bit cleaner, and they're awfully neat because you can personalize them. Sentimental. So I don't always pack my pack the same way, but we'll start with the top, which is always the same way, and that is my food bag. Now there's a few options out there for food safety with bears for the most prime example. Food bag, obviously, and then there is a bear safe food bag, which you basically tie to a tree. And I don't understand the purpose of those fully yet, because if a bear comes up and starts trying to get into your food, he or she may not get that food, but they are definitely going to crush it to the point and drool on it to the point that I don't know if I'd want to eat it anyway. The other popular option is a bear canister, which is a canister that a bear can't usually access. And they are super bulky, and especially for the weekend warrior, even the small ones may be excessive in size. And basically, they're just huge and heavy. So why do I carry a bare bag? Because I'm willing to accept the fact that hanging it isn't always the easiest chore in camp, but this is ultralight, and as I consume the food out of here, I can roll it into a smaller and less bulky item, and I am carrying like 3 ounces versus, I don't know, 1 pound to 2 pounds for the canister or the bear sack. I bring trekking poles. I rarely use them. Why do I bring them anyway? A lot of trips. One, I find them to be a potential weapon against humans or any threatening animals out there. And number 2, I bring them when I hammock because if the weather's going to be nice, I put my hammock in porch mode. You'll see that. But it seems like a lot to carry for something you're not even using for its usefulness. But I do bring them because if I would hurt myself, it would come in handy if I had a sprained ankle. And if I have unexpected elevation, ups or downs, I will pull these out and use them because I do find them very useful in terms of like taking some of the load off of your shoulders when you're hiking. Yeah, you see it. 2 cans of Monster. I'm going to be out for the whole weekend. Brought a drone. This is something I never do. I was hoping for more fall colors, which there are some. And drone shots are never not epic unless you're a complete horrible pilot like myself, but we'll see what we can capture with that. And I'm sure share with you at some point in this video. But that's ridiculous, unnecessary weight. When I can have fires, and even if you can't, it's probably a decent idea to bring some kind of a fire starter. Unless you're a primitive skills god, a fire starter is going to come in handy, especially if you have damp wood, and it might be a necessity to have a fire if it gets really cold unexpectedly, you get caught in a blizzard. You never know what may happen. So bringing a way to start a fire, even in tough conditions, is always a good thing. So I almost always pack one of these fire start cubes. And since I'm going to use fire for relaxation this weekend, I brought 2 of them, which will start up to 4 fires. I usually chop these in half. My water filtration system is a Sawyer Squeeze. The reason I carry the Sawyer Squeeze, I guess, is just that it's one of the simplest, which is most important to me, options. This is an easy combo, easy to obtain, and they do a lot of work for charity too, especially in places where they don't have clean water to drink. So Sawyer Squeeze, Canuck bag. I am not a snobby hammock camper. In fact, I do like to tent once in a while. However, let's get it set up, and I'll tell you why I like hammocks. This, you may have guessed it, is a hammock. One of the biggest reasons I like hammocks is right here. When I roll out of bed in the morning, rather than crawling off the ground like a filthy animal, all I have to do is put my feet out like this and stand up. And I will tell you, a hammock does take some getting used to. In fact, for me, I'd say it took 5 or 6 outings before I really got a first night's sleep that was excellent. Now you might be saying, Tim, why would you carry such a big hammock and setup like that? It's got to be heavier. Well, that really depends on what you get. This is a full winter rig. This is a 15-degree hammock, and this with my 15-degree quilt and my big tarp is probably a little over 4 pounds. They are ultralight, and they can be just as condensable as tents in most cases. I've got a couple other reasons why I like hammocking that are really key, but I'm going to set up the shelter, and then we'll talk about that. Oh, hey, neighbor. Welcome back. So oftentimes, hammockers are not popular amongst tenters unless it's raining. If it starts to rain, everybody's going to congregate under one of these big, flashy tarps. There's just a lot more room for activities, really. Now I know some of you are out there saying to yourselves, but I just feel so vulnerable hanging there like that, like a bear taco. That's a very common fear. I can understand it. However, I would challenge you to think about the simple fact that a tent may be false sense of security, because obviously if a moose or a bear or something decided they wanted to get into your tent, they really wouldn't have that tough of a time. And I could argue something pretty big. What if you can't get out of the tent and they're after you? You're going to be rolled up in a big taco that you can't get out of. I think I could fight my way out of this hammock faster than you could fight your way out of a tent. Another reason I like a hammock is you can enjoy the view from your hammock. So right now I have this set up in what's called porch mode, which means I just have this entire thing sprawled out so I can sit underneath this canopy and just look out among these beautiful woods. Porch mode is nice. It would be like if you're not expecting storms, favorable weather, you go this route because it's just luxurious. It's like a castle. This particular tarp has a ton of configurations. It's from Superior Gear. I know you're probably having a hard time seeing it, but this is a 12-foot monster. Right now I have it set up in vacation mode, but I could bring this down lower and close some doors on either end. I could stretch it out so it's just a full-on square or rectangle, so to speak. I even fit 2 hammocks under one of these beasts. There's a lot of different ways you can configure this particular tarp. But even my minimalist Dyneema tarp from Hammock Gear provides tons of different options for me to open it up and hang out underneath it, or to clamp it down for storms. So the tarp to me is more versatile than any tent could ever be in that regard. And when it does rain, I might be getting out with my feet touching the mud, but the rest of my body is up over that. So generally speaking, when I pack this up in the morning, it's not going to be full of mud on the bottom like a tent would be either. So in this little container is my entire kitchen. And I go minimal, and I'll tell you why. Because 95% of the time I'm making backpacker meals if I'm having hot food. So that only requires boiling water and pouring it into a meal. So a 750 milliliter pot is the size I chose, and the reason why is I can bring my entire kitchen in this package. That includes the fuel, a little rag that goes underneath it to prevent rust and makes it easy to clean your pot out with, a little Bic lighter, and a little mini stove, which is ultra lightweight. So it's ultra lightweight, not very bulky, and does everything I need it to do. This is a quilt. Bring for the correct temperatures. It's going to be in the 40s tonight, so I brought a 45-degree quilt, which is really on the fringe of being warm, but my hammock is a 15 degrees, so I stay toasty warm with this combination down to probably 35 degrees. Why do I put this in its own separate little dry sack? If anything's damp in my pack, it won't permeate this layer. And in heavy rains, this pack is made of waterproof material, but rain can seep in through seams. No backpack is entirely waterproof, or submersible in other words. So if I bring a roll top dry bag, also made of waterproof materials, this is seam sealed, and it's very unlikely that anything would get my quilt wet in any circumstance. That's why. Electronics kit. Why do I carry this? I have a battery bank in here and a headlamp, and the microphone I'm speaking on right now goes in here usually too. Headlamp is an essential piece of gear. Why do I carry that versus a flashlight or something like that? Because you literally strap it to your head, and any direction you look, the headlamp looks as well. So it's far safer when you're night hiking, and it's just a lot easier to have something hands-free for all the things you might have to do for camp chores at night. And then I always bring a battery bank. I bring the appropriate milliamps power bank for the occasion. 10,000 will usually get me through a 2-day trip or 2-night trip. And I think it's something good for anybody to bring, even if you're not filming, because as we know, technology is what we rely on most of the time to navigate the trails. So should your phone die unexpectedly, you can charge it with something. So that's why I bring that, both for emergency purposes and because I like to have a fully charged phone for doing just this. Save the burrito. This piece of gear is something I'm extremely excited about. It's a less than 1 ounce, like 0.9 ounce Ridgeline organizer for my hammock. It's just a 2-sided deal with snaps on the side. It goes up and over. Think of it like a clothesline, which you could use it on a clothesline too. But why do I bring this is because when you're in a hammock, you don't have a tent floor or something to like put your phone on, put your gloves and hat. That's one of the only disadvantages to a hammock in my opinion. So I bring this along so that I can store all those things that I would otherwise store on my tent floor. Battery bank and phone. That's what this hole here is for actually. There's a phone pocket on one side, battery bank pocket on the other, and you string your cord through the middle. This thing is awesome, and a secondary use for it is if you put your headlamp in here, because of this kind of shiny bright material, it turns into a really cool lantern. And I'll show you a little bit of how that looks. I bring it because it's useful and it weighs next to nothing. I always bring at least one extra tent stake. Why? because they can break, they can get stuck in the ground once in a while, and if your tent or shelter requires a certain amount to even be structurally sound, you want to make sure you have enough should you lose one, break one, bury one, and not be able to get it out, etc. It might even be smart to bring 2 extra tent stakes, but that's why. Hopefully you can see this okay, but inside my pack is this little pocket. It is a sticky wallet. This one is from Hilltop Packs. There's a few other companies that do similar things too, but why do I bring something like this? This is really important to me. If I carry my wallet, which most of the times I don't, I leave it in my car, but if I would be on a through hike where I know I might need some cash or a card, I'd bring my wallet in here, and most importantly, my car keys, because it would be pretty nasty to lose them on trail. It'd be hard to recover them and find them, and you may get all the way back to your car and realize you somewhere lost your keys. So keys, wallet, anything really important that you're only going to use on trip when you leave and when you get back, I have a safe place to keep them. So there you have it, some of my favorite pieces of gear and why I carry them. If you stuck it out to this point in the video, I'd love to hear what you have to say. What are your favorite pieces of gear, and why do you carry them? Leave me a comment below and tell me your story. That's all for now. We'll see you all real soon.